Welcome back, chess fans. Today, we are diving straight into an absolute masterclass of tactical brilliance and positional domination from the 59th Biel International Chess Festival. We have an incredible David versus Goliath showdown. On one side, the veteran powerhouse, Grandmaster Surya Shekhar Ganguly. On the other side, the rising prodigy, international master Savitha Shri. What starts as a quiet, deeply strategic symmetrical English opening quickly explodes into an absolute tactical battlefield. We are talking about jaw-dropping knight sacrifices, king hunts, and a devastating endgame lesson that leaves a super GM completely defenseless. Grab your coffee, set up your boards, and let's break down exactly how this masterpiece unfolded move by move. Part 1. The opening skirmish, moves 1 to 7. The battle begins in the English opening, symmetrical variation. Both grandmasters immediately look to control the vital central real estate, establishing their boundaries from the very first seconds. 1. Knight f3. White starts with the ready opening, developing the king's knight to its most natural home. This move controls the e5 and d4 squares, while keeping options completely open regarding central pawn setups. 1 c5. Black replies with the Sicilian/English hybrid structure. By placing a pawn on c5, Savitha stakes a claim on the d4 square and ensures an asymmetrical fight where central space will be highly contested. 2 c4. White commits to the symmetrical English. Ganguly builds a barrier against a quick d5 push by black and signals a long, strategic maneuvering game. Lichess notes 2. e4 as a sharper theoretical alternative, forcing an immediate open center, but 2. c4 is a deeply classical choice. 2. Knight c6. Black develops naturally. The knight applies direct pressure to the d4 and e5 squares, preparing to support any future central operations. 3. Knight c3. White mirrors black's development. Both sides now have their queenside knights out, keeping a firm grip on the central grid. 3. Knight f6. Black brings out the kingside knight. The 4 knights are now developed, a standard canvas for high-level tactical plotting. 4 d4. White strikes. Ganguly breaks open the center immediately, forcing an exchange of pawns to gain active lines for his major pieces. 4. C takes d4. Black happily captures. Leaving the pawn on d4 would give white an overwhelmingly dominant center, so Savitha liquidates the tension. 5. Knight takes d4. White recaptures with the knight, occupying a powerful outpost in the dead center of the board. 5 g6. Black opts for a fianchetto structure, preparing to place the dark-squared bishop on g7 where it can slice across the longest diagonal of the board. The engine slightly prefers an immediate 5 d6 to lock down the e5 square. 6 e4. White seizes full space. This creates the famous Maroczy bind. By placing pawns on c4 and e4, white clamps down on the d5 square, making it incredibly difficult for black to achieve a comfortable central break. 6 d6. Black stops the further advance of white's e-pawn and opens paths for the light-squared bishop. 7. Bishop e2. White quietly develops the light-squared bishop. It protects the d4 knight and prepares short castling, completing the classical formulation of the Maroczy bind. 7. Bishop g7. Black executes the plan, placing the bishop on the long h8, a 1 diagonal. The pressure is now applied directly to white's central knight on d4. Let's go to the second trap. Part 2. Building the positions, moves 8 to 14. With the central structures clearly defined, both players transition into the heavy maneuvering phase, seeking subtle square advantages before the position explodes. 8. Bishop e3. White reinforces the central knight. The bishop on e3 serves as a fortress wall, guarding the center while eyeing the queenside. 8. Castle. Black tucks the king safely into the corner. Castling completes black's basic development. The king is safe, and the rooks are ready to connect. 9. Castle. White follows suit. Both monarchs are now tucked away, and the real psychological warfare begins. 10. Knight c2. White retreats the knight from d4 to c2. Ganguly avoids a potential piece exchange on d4, wanting to keep pieces on the board to squeeze black's restricted position. The engine marks this as a minor inaccuracy, preferring 10. a3 to prepare queenside expansion. 10 a6. Black plays a flexible pawn move. Savitha prepares a potential queenside counter-expansion with b5, while also preventing any pesky white pieces from hopping into b5. 11. f3. White builds a rock-solid pawn chain. The f3 pawn firmly cements the e4 pawn, completely neutralizing black's dark-squared bishop on g7. 11. Knight e5. Black repositioning. The knight eyes the weakened c4 pawn and clears the path for the queenside rooks. 12. Queen d2. White connects the rooks and eyes the h6 square for a future bishop trade. However, the computer points out 12. c5 as a missed opportunity to break Black's structure apart before they can organize. 12. Rook c8. Black places the rook on the open c-file. The pressure on White's c4 pawn is mounting, forcing White to think defensively. 13. Knight a3. White awkwardly defends. The knight moves to the rim of the board to protect the c4 pawn. While safe, the knight on a3 is temporarily out of play. 14. Rook ac1. White brings the queenside rook to the party, reinforcing the c-file and matching Black's heavy artillery. 14. Queen a5. Black activates the queen. The queen pins her eyes down the board, creating a pin on White's c3 knight and preparing tactical complications. The Knight Gambit TV mission statement. The Knight Gambit TV exists to help chess players learn, improve, and enjoy the game. Our mission is not to chase money or fame, but to share valuable chess knowledge with players of all ages and skill levels. We believe that every player can become stronger through consistent learning, disciplined practice, and a love for chess. Through Grandmaster game analysis, opening ideas, tactical puzzles, in-game lessons, and practical training, we aim to make chess education simple, inspiring, and accessible to everyone. At the Knight Gambit TV, every lesson is created with one purpose: to help you become a better chess player, one move at a time. Learn, think, improve, inspire. The Knight Gambit TV, building better chess players. Part 3. The strategic melt, moves 15 to 21. The position transitions from a slow squeeze to an open skirmish. Pieces are traded, and the pawn barriers begin to dissolve. 15. h3. White plays a prophylactic move, preventing any ing-4 ideas. However, it's slightly passive compared to the centralizing 15. Rook fd1. 15. Bishop e6. Black increases the pressure on c4. Savitha has beautifully coordinated her pieces against White's queenside structural flaws. 16. Knight d5. White lashes out with a thematic knight jump. Ganguly forces a massive sequence of exchanges to alleviate the pressure on his position. 16. Queen takes d2. Black accepts the challenge, trading off the queens first to reduce the tactical danger. 17. Bishop takes d2. White recaptures with the bishop, maintaining active placement. 17. Knight fd7. Black relocates the knight. Savitha anticipates the opening of the center and moves the knight towards squares where it can jump into action. 18. Bishop c3. White repositions the bishop to contest the long diagonal. The engine preferred keeping the rook on d1 to control the central highway. 18. Knight c5. Black's knights are incredibly active now, dancing around the center and looking for weak outposts in White's territory. 19. Rook fd1. White finally brings the final rook to the central file, aiming to lock down the d-line. 19. f5. Black breaks out. Savitha aggressively pushes her f-pawn, smashing open the center and challenging White's proud pawn duo. 20. f4. White punches back, attacking the active e5 knight. The game turns highly volatile. 20. Knight c6. Black safely retreats the knight, keeping it eyeing key central squares. 21. E takes f5. White liquidates the central tension, creating open files for the rooks. 21. Bishop takes f5. Black recaptures with the bishop, activating it into a glorious attacking weapon. Part 4. The tactics explode, moves 22 to 29. The game reaches its critical fever pitch. One misstep will mean total strategic disaster. 22. Bishop takes g7. White trades off Black's powerful fianchetto bishop, trying to weaken the dark squares around Black's king. 22. King takes g7. Black recaptures with the king. The king is slightly exposed, but perfectly safe for now. 23. g4. A massive structural commitment from Ganguly. He aggressively pushes his kingside pawns to kick Black's bishop, but it leaves permanent weaknesses in his own backyard. The calmer 23. b4 was much better. 23. Bishop e4. Black happily plants the bishop on a golden central outpost. 24. Knight b1. White tries to reroute his out-of-play knight back into the game via d2. 24. Knight e6. Black targets the weak f4 pawn. White's kingside structure is beginning to sag under the pressure. 25. Knight bc3. White challenges the monstrous bishop on e4. 25. Knight cd4. A spectacular, brilliant tactical strike by Savitha Shri. Instead of moving her attacked bishop, she leaps forward with her knight, threatening and devastating fork on e2. 26. King f2. White crumbles under the tactical stress. Walking the king forward is a fatal mistake. White absolutely had to play 26. rd2 to maintain the balance. 26. Knight takes e2. Black ruthlessly snaps off the bishop, dismantling White's defensive matrix. 27. Knight takes e2. White recaptures, but the damage is done. 27. Bishop takes d5. Black systematically clears away White's active pieces. 28. C takes d5. White recaptures, opening up the c-file, but his pawn structure is isolated and broken. 28. Knight c5. Black lands her knight on an unassailable defensive and offensive square. 29. King f3. White moves the king to protect the weak f4 pawn. 29. King f6. Black mirrors the king's activity, centralizing the monarch for the impending endgame phase. Part 5. The fatal blunder and ruin, moves 30 to 39. The endgame transforms into a clinic of precision as Black punishes White's overextended weaknesses. 30. Knight d4. White aims for a central outpost, but neglects his backline defense. 30. rc2 was vital to contest the open file. 30. Knight a4. Black's knight invades. Savitha attacks the weak b2 pawn, forcing White into full retreat. 31. g5 check. White checks the king, trying to gain active counterplay on the king's side. 31. King f7. Black's king slips back into total safety. 32. Rook takes c8. White tries to ease the pressure by trading off a pair of rooks. 32. Rook takes c8. Black recaptures, seizing absolute, undisputed control over the open c-file. 33. Rook d2. White scrambles backward to protect the weak b2 pawn. 33. Rook c1. The black rook invades the first rank. Savitha's piece activity is totally overwhelming. 34. Knight e2. White tries to kick the intrusive rook away. 34. Rook a1. Black relentlessly switches targets, now attacking the a2 pawn. 35. b3. White pushes the pawn to kick the knight, but it creates even more holes in his structure. 35. Knight c5. The knight returns to its golden throne on c5. 36. Knight g3. White tries to regroup his knight to defend the king's side. 36. a5. Black fixes the queenside pawns, preparing to completely freeze White's pawns out. 37. h4. Ganguly tries one final desperate push for counterplay on the h-file. 37. Rook g1. Black restrains White's ideas, pinning the knight to the defense of the king's side. 38. Rook d4. White attempts to swing the rook over to defend or attack from the side. 38. Rook c1. Black dominates the c-file once again, preparing to infiltrate further. 39. Rook d2. The ultimate disaster. Ganguly blunders under intense positional pressure. He needed to play 39. Knight e4 to trade off Black's monster knight. Instead, this move loses a devastating 3 points of evaluation instantly. 39. Rook c3 check. Savitha lands the finishing blow. The rook delivers a shattering check, forcing the king away from the defense of his own camp. White's position collapses completely, leading to a brilliant victory for Black, 0-1. This game is a stark reminder for all of us. Never overextend your pawns without keeping your king safe, and never underestimate the power of an active knight outpost. If you love this deep dive and want to master more tactical breakdowns from the 2026 Biel Festival, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a brilliant combination. Drop a comment below. What was your favorite move of the game? Until next time, keep analyzing, keep pushing those pawns, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. God bless everyone.